and welcome to another edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, or what you may not know about Doctor Who. We're on episode 88, and 88 is one of my favourite numbers of all time. And so I'm going to talk about an episode that I absolutely love, or a story that I absolutely love, featuring my favourite Doctor Who villains of all, the Daleks. Here is the Dalek invasion of Earth. I hope you enjoy. The real-life reason for Susan's exit was because Carol Ann Ford was dissatisfied by the character's development or lack thereof. This is also the first time a companion leaves the Doctor. This was the first story to be produced at the new Riverside Studios. The production team had moved from Lime Grove Studios. It also saw a quarry being used for location filming for the first time ever. During recording, as Richard McNeff was carrying William Hartnell down the ramp of the Dalek saucer, the ramp suddenly collapsed and Hartnell fell on a metal camera stand, landing awkwardly on his spine. Although he was temporarily paralysed, he recovered sufficiently to continue the recording, but it was decided he should have the following week off to recover from the bruised back he had sustained. As with the Daleks, this story was adapted into a movie entitled Daleks Invasion of Earth 2150 AD. However, it underperformed, and so was the last Doctor Who serial to be adapted for cinema, which is kind of a shame, really. Working titles for the story were Daleks Threaten Earth, The Invaders, The Daleks 2, The Return of the Daleks, and Daleks in Europe. The 4 original Dalek casings constructed for the Daleks were used again in this serial. 2 of them had been borrowed back from Bernardo's children's home in Stepney, to which they had been donated following the broadcast of the original serial. The 2 new Daleks were also constructed as well. The story introduced the Dalek ranking system and different variations of the Daleks, with the appearance of the Dalek Supreme Controller and Saucer Commander. In the original script, David and Susan were menaced by mutated humans in the sewers instead of crocodiles. The original climax saw the Daleks attempt to kill their slaves by trapping them in the mines, which would then be flowing with lava when the bombs exploded. Originally, 3 old women lived in the shanty in the woods, rather than the degenerate mother and daughter. The Robomen were conceived as wearing only a small disc on their temple, with wires snaking into the hair. This was David Whittaker's final story as story editor. The character of Jenny was originally intended to be Susan's replacement, although this was halted over uncertainty about the future of the series. Several London landmarks were marked with Dalek code or graffiti. This effect was produced by using electrical tape so it could be taken down after filming. Carol Ann Ford cried real tears filming Susan's departure. Wells's role was originally much smaller. He was freed from the Dalek shuttle by Ian and left to tend to the other escapees. Jean Conroy, who played one of the women in the woods in the 5th episode, died in a street accident on the 14th of November 1964. The episode was broadcast posthumously. The production crew anticipated the final episode to be one of the most technically complex. The recording suffered some camera and sound issues, causing William Hartnell to stumble some speeches. Hartnell omitted 2 lines from the Doctor's closing speech to Susan. The 2 lines omitted by Hartnell included one earlier in the speech: "Work hard, both of you. Be gentle with her, David, and show her that life on Earth with love and understanding can be a great adventure." The second line was meant to be at the end of the speech: "And remember, love is the most precious jewel of all." Hammersmith Bridge was chosen as a location because it provided easy access to a hospital in case any performers swallowed river water. A taxi remained on standby. Dalek operator Robert Jewell could not gain enough traction to move his Dalek out of the river. The prop was attached to a cable to help. This story was ranked as Doctor Who magazine readers' favourite First Doctor story in their 2023 poll, replacing the only previous victor, the Daleks. The original script included a teenage rebel named Saida, a girl of Indian descent who was revealed as Dorman's daughter at his death. Saida stowed away aboard the TARDIS at the story's conclusion, becoming the new companion. Subsequently, this character evolved into the Caucasian Jenny. For years, there was debate over the colour of the Supreme Dalek, as many believed, thanks to merchandise, novelisation, the movies and comics, that the Supreme Dalek was meant to be red, just appeared black due to the black and white cinematography. Of course, this isn't true, but even today that belief is still persistent. Terry Nation originally submitted a script called The Red Fort, a historical tale set during the Indian Mutiny. Due to the popularity of the Daleks and demand for more appearances from them, it was abandoned. It goes without saying that this is the first story in which the Daleks are seen on Earth. The redesign of the Daleks was because of a few reasons. The first was to make the Daleks taller, more intimidating, adding 8 inches to their height. The second was to allow them to move around much better across various environments they were filming at. This serial contains a unique Dalek design feature in the eye stalk of one of the Dalek props being silver rather than black. The Dalek Saucer Commander was painted black and silver in the middle of filming. In fact, the prop known as Dalek 2 was a normal Dalek in shots that were filmed in the afternoon of September 25th, and then painted literally on the same day of filming in the evening, so it actually appeared twice in one go. Despite the fact that the bumper car design of the Daleks in this particular story are used in the 60s movies, as well as several pieces of merchandise and is quite a recognisable design, this is one of only 2 times that the Daleks have that bumper car design. It's used obviously with the Saucer Daleks, but also the Paradigm Daleks later on in 2010. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed. The Dalek Invasion of Earth is easily the best First Doctor story by a long shot. It has everything going for it, and it is absolutely fantastic. It is an iconic story, in fact. There's almost nothing wrong with this story. I mean, there is a bit of shoddy acting here and there, but this is 60s Doctor Who. There's always going to be shoddy acting here and there. I do think that in some cases the Susan farewell is one of those things that you either think has aged really well or aged really poorly. I'm a little bit mixed. Like, on one hand, it is an emotional scene, but on the other hand, he has just dumped his granddaughter off in a post-apocalyptic world. It's not necessarily the safest place ever, and it does seem a little bit odd, all things considered. The Dalek designs in this, I do love the bumper car design of the Daleks. I will say this, I don't like the saucers on the back of the Daleks. I think that looks really goofy, really silly. I like that you see different variations of the Daleks. You have obviously the black Supreme Dalek and the Saucer Commander, which was quite striped in pattern. It is quite funny that it was a last-minute paint job for that Dalek. They literally just painted it on the same day they were filming other scenes with that Dalek in, which is quite funny to think about. This is obviously a massively iconic story. The Daleks going over the London Bridge, although that actually isn't featured in this, it's just a promotional shot. And of course them just taking over London. It's a really brutal story, all things considered, especially when you consider a lot of the elements involved. The fact that the Daleks, their invasion wasn't immediate. They orchestrated all these horrific events, the weather going all haywire, plagues, etc. And then they came in and just, took over. They essentially softened the planet before they dominated it. I believe there has also been an explanation as to why everything is in the 1960s when it's meant to be in the far future, which is quite funny to think about. But I think the explanation was it's some sort of time divergent or something like that. I think that was the in-universe explanation. Obviously the real explanation is they just didn't have the budget to have futuristic stuff everywhere. I think this is a really fabulous story. It's a very dark story for the first era. You have someone committing suicide at one point. You have all this death and devastation, and Daleks are shown as their evilest at this moment in time. It's a great continuation from the Daleks. The Daleks, it is a very simple story, all things considered, but then you see them here, and this is how dominating they will be. And of course it was a massive hit. Let's be clear, this was a massive hit. Unlike other very long stories, a lot of people really don't like longer serials. I think this works very well in this particular case. I think each part has something to offer, and each part is entertaining in their own right. The Daleks are great, the First Doctor is great, Susan is great, everything is great about this story. A definite recommend, and if you're not really a fan of the 60s era Doctor Who, or the classic era in general, this is definitely one of the ones that you must watch, because it is fantastic. Hope you enjoyed this edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, and I'll see you next time.